or a carpenter, I think every project sort of takes the same flow. There are days when we do stuff, we work all day, we make some progress, yes, but not really highly visible progress. Then there comes a pinnacle point. Like when building furniture, we get all those pieces cut and shaped, and we finally get to glue up a sub-assembly, and we get to start to see how the project's going to look when it's finished. Well, turning this garage into my workshop is kind of taking on the same thing as a woodworking project, following the same sort of flow. As you know, I started off with just bare stud walls in just this corner of the shop. First thing I did was I rough wired or stubbed out wiring through the studs. Then insulated, put up this paneling, and now today I'm going to show you how I wired up an outlet and a couple of switches up here. And in a little bit, I'll be able to turn on a light, flip a switch, and see the electrical work. And it's going to kind of be a high point, a pinnacle for me, because getting this corner of the shop done was really key to moving on through the rest of the project. I got to build the stairs up to the second level, and I've got to get some stuff out of the shop moved over here to this side so that I can start working on the rest of the shop. So this is sort of like a sub-assembly, gluing up that sub-assembly and seeing how it's going to finally look. So let's get this wiring done. I'm going to show you how I tie it into the circuit breaker box too. And we'll be ready to rock and roll with the next part of this project. This is a handy tool. This is a bent nose stripper for Romex cable. Allows you to reach up inside the box and trim or cut through the Romex sheathing and pull the thing off. Saves a lot of skinned knuckles and a lot of frustration. I recommend highly that you get one of these. You just crimp very lightly and rock it back and forth a little bit, and you're good to go. And there we are. Okay, so what we want to do here, I've had these labeled before, now I've got them off to the side. This is the feed coming from the circuit breaker box. This is the sort of jumper feed that will go to the next outlet. The hot and the neutral will connect to the bottom of this outlet. Hot and the neutral will connect to the top of the outlet, and the circuit will continue on and daisy chain through. We'll tie these grounds together with a short jumper wire and tie it to the ground on this outlet so that we have a fully grounded circuit, and we're all set to go. So let's take a look at how we're going to do that. If you use these wire nuts with wings on them, you can get quite a bit of leverage, which will also twist the wires. I've always been a little on the overkill side, so I also use some electrical tape and just over tape that connection on up to the wire nut, which I don't know what it really does, but makes me feel better. Alright, so here's our ground. We're going to connect that into the green terminal on the outlet. We're just going to form a small loop here to get started. We'll put that over and tighten up the loop so that it can't slip out. And then we'll just drive it home with a screwdriver. Now this particular outlet can either be back wired or it can be looped. I'm back wiring these, which means I'm going to strip about a ½ inch off the wire, feed it in under the terminal through this hole, and then tighten down the screw. And it makes a good connection. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure I give myself enough wire here to work with. I'd rather have a little extra and then worry about trying to shove them into the box. Strip off about a ½ inch. And of course the
I'm sure you know this, but the black wire goes to the side with the brass looking screws here. Shove it home. Drive that screw in nice and tight so the wire can't slip out. And do the same thing over here with the neutral side. Okay, so now our feed line is set up, and now I'm going to hook up the jumper line to go to the next box. Right, and the same configuration, you want to make sure that you get the black on the same side. Now, one of the things you want to make sure you do is don't strip off so much that any bare wire is showing on the back if you're back wiring these. The other thing you want to do is you don't want to strip off so little that you're actually crimping onto the insulation rather than the wire itself. So there is a wire guide, strip guide printed on the back or embossed into the back of this switch, but it's a ½ inch, so you're good. Get a little tug on these, make sure they're in tight, and then the next thing I do is I flex this wire and put a bend in it so that when I shove the switch in, it's got a bend already started. Now, the very last thing I do, I don't know if this is required or even a good idea, but an electrician friend of mine said he always does it, so I do it too. And that's to take a strip of black electrical tape and run it around the sides of the outlet, which just covers those connector screws. I guess if this was in a double box, it would maybe even be more important where nothing could accidentally come in contact with something else. But I do that. Tape's cheap. Only takes a second to do it. Okay, if you kind of shove this in a little bit at an angle, get those wires compressed a little bit, it's helpful. There's actually, if you think about it, 6 wires inside that box, 12 gauge wires, so it's pretty stiff. And then you can use an electric screwdriver if you want to. Just be careful not to overdrive, because these screws, if you're using plastic boxes like I am, you can strip out those boxes. And you want to get this up basically where the ears, these little ears here, are flush with your finished wall. And you want to make sure the outlet is straight. And you're good to go, ready to put on the switch plate. I'm using unbreakable nylon switch plates. They're a little oversized as well, so that's good if you were putting up the paneling and cut your holes just a little bit too big, like I sometimes do. But put your switch plate on, get it nice and flush there, and you're good to go. Okay, now this is a dedicated circuit. It's 2 switches feeding 2 separate outlets. One of these circuits will be for my air compressor, and the other will be for a shop vac. Both the air compressor and the shop vac are going to be enclosed in a little area underneath my stairs. So what I've got here is I've got feed wires coming in with power, hot, neutral, and ground, and I've got 2 wires going to the switches. I've got them labeled near and far. That's because one's near and one's a little further away. Later I'll label them in the circuit breaker box correctly. What we need to do is we need to tie all the neutrals together. And then we're going to tie 2 wires to the hot going to the switch, and then we're going to connect each switch to the hot wire there, so that we've got the neutrals tied together, we've got 1 feed feeding both of these, and 2 wires going out with the hot, and then we're going to tie all the grounds together, and we're going to ground the switches. The reason we're going to do that, particularly for the vacuum cleaner, since they have a tendency to build up some static electricity, I want to have the switches grounded as well. So a lot of wires are going to be in this box, so let's get after it.
something now I said I wouldn't do. I always said that I was fairly confident in my electrical work, but I stopped at the breaker box and called in an electrician to tie everything in. But so many readers and watchers of these videos have emailed me and said, come on Steve, you can do this. It's not that difficult. So I've been reading, studying. I talked to an electrician. My confidence came up a little bit, and sure enough, I did hook up one breaker here for all of the outside power and the power that runs out to the barn behind the garage, and lo and behold, it worked. So I'm going to hook up this breaker for this dedicated circuit, which is eventually going to be for my air compressor and vacuum cleaner. Right now though, I just need some power in the shop. As I continue to dismantle everything in this garage, I'm losing circuit by circuit as I'm removing the old wiring, and pretty soon I'm not going to have any power to be able to do any work. So I'm going to hook this up. You can follow along. Now, one big caveat: if you're uncomfortable doing this, don't do it. Call an electrician. And trust me, when I'm all done with this whole job, I'm going to have my electrician come in and check out the work and make sure it's right. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is take off the cover panel. In an abundance of caution, I'm going to use my little circuit tester here to make sure that nothing is hot. So the first thing I need to do is I need to pull this wire up through the bottom of the box and put a strain relief here. And now I'm going to kind of figure out about how much length I need. Now the ground wire is going to go to this ground bus. You can't really see it over there. And then this is going to bend over and go into this slot here. The neutral will be going up here. So I think if I cut this along in here, give myself plenty of extra space. So now, first thing I'm going to do is figure out how to neatly come up here and connect in this ground. Okay, got a pretty good ground connection there. Now, we'll do a hopefully semi-neat hookup here. Of the neutral. Now the only thing that's left to do is tie this into the breaker itself. Now I don't know whether real electricians tie it to the breaker and then snap the breaker in, or snap the breaker in and then tie it in, but I'm going to tie it into the breaker first and then snap the breaker into place. And there we go. Now, if I did everything right, we should have electricity. Okay, now before I put the cover back on, I got to break out a spot here for this new breaker. Everything fits. Oh yeah. Okay, that breaker is off, so I'm going to go turn the power back on, and we'll see if it works. I'm going to turn this breaker on now. Let's see what happens. Oh, so far nothing. Okay, let's check out the next piece. Let's flip on one of these switches. Still didn't ship the circuit breaker. How about the other one? So far so good, but let's see if they actually work now. We have lights. Yes, the switches work. It's working. Hallelujah. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.